But first, let's talk about your Dallas Mavericks because they do have a new general manager. In addition to their new team president, Masai Ujiri, they have a new general manager in Mike Schmitz, officially announced on Friday. But we have not really had a chance to dive into this just yet because, Jonah, he is a fascinating hire that has had a rapid ascent to this point.
Yeah, I was anchoring that night when the news came down, and I guess I was surprised in a big way because Masai Ujiri is a guy who's had many years of experience as a team president in the NBA and, comes in with a track record of success. And so that speaks of we want somebody who's proven in the Mavericks organization kind of helping build this team. Mike Schmitz has never been a general manager before. And the last time the Mavs hired a first-time GM, it didn't go so great. So maybe there's just some PTSD there, but I do think it is a positive hire because the guy we'll get into his backstory, I'm sure, here in a minute, but he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. His assessment of player prospects and his scouting, and there's tons of receipts online, on Twitter, that show he knows what he's talking about. And you go back through there and you're like, yeah, he knows ball. And then you go to...
He was on Luka very, very early.
He knows ball. And he was the assistant GM for the Blazers for the last 3 years. So he's got some front office experience now. It's not like he's going straight from... I'm not going to call him a blogger, but he was
Yeah.
And he worked his
Draft
way up.
Express was pretty niche
He really worked his way up from blogger to writer to NBA draft analyst. An analyst is a very polite way of saying high-tier blogger, right? I mean, you're still taking a niche.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is. It is very much as if like an NFL team hired a Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, any of those draft types into their front office, which is not.
Does anybody know who Mel Kiper is?
Way to derail.
That was great.
But no, like that. Seeing his ascent, and it's interesting because usually when they hire a general manager, he's got a Wikipedia page. Schmitz at this point does not, and when you type him into Google, he's not even the first Mike Schmitz to come up. For most people,
well, that's the best part,
right? No, I'm being serious. This is part of like the evaluation process. Like when we're trying to get information on a guy,
everyone runs to Google.
Exactly, and it was fascinating to me that. It seems like a hire that feels in the weeds based off of knowing ball to some degree, but it also kind of feels like the right mantra, right? Like Masai wants different opinions. He wants different outlooks on this thing, and he wants someone that might not be as ingrained in the basketball community and have those kind of connections to tether him to certain aspects.
Can we pop back up his
history?
His history, just so we can kind of go through that, because I'm sure there's some folks out there who maybe are not totally. Understand really where he comes from. I had a buddy who texted me right when this dropped, who was like, they hired the Draft Express guy.
Yeah.
And so for those who don't know, Draft Express is like a scout. It's they've got social media accounts, but it's basically this platform that does NBA scouting and videos and interviews with NBA draft prospects. It's really neat what they created. And then ESPN, I think,
basically
bought them or absorbed them. And that's how Mike Schmitz became sort of a on-camera personality for ESPN. What was that, starting in
2017 was the draft analyst. Yeah.
And prior to that, I mean, he was writer for Yahoo Sports covering the Suns. So, this is a guy who was in media.
Yes.
Found what he really was passionate about, and it looked like he was passionate about his entire career, and kept working at it, stood out, did some good stuff on air, probably met a lot of the right people in the right spaces, like Masai Ujiri.
And to your point, showed with his takes
it's
that he understood what was going on and could see what was coming.
Right, and when you're in those spaces around those people, the only difference is the people that are in the front office and you who's writing about it is just somebody signing you to a contract to work for that team, right? Like you're essentially doing the same work. You're scouting. You're looking at prospects. You're looking at
when you're doing it the way that he was.
Right, you're looking at it through the same prism of who is this player? The only thing different now is you have to build a roster, and you can't just necessarily, go straight for the best player, but maybe you can. There's just more to it now that you have to, factor in salary cap and all that stuff. But I think they're going to look at him to be a big expert in the prospect evaluation phase. And maybe not necessarily like free agents per se, but evaluation. And he's created a lot of relationships with these guys over the course of years from interviews. Like I'm going through YouTube rabbit holes on Mike Schmitz, doing like one-on-ones with Jalen Williams from the Oklahoma City Thunder when he looks like he's 19 years old.
Yeah.
And he's like half the body that he has now. And it's just kind of funny to see, that then versus now. And now he's, going to have a role where he's going to be able to bring some of these guys on board.
First check mark in the plus in his category is his experience is all of the things that you're talking about. His experience is not, as it was with Nico, sneakers and relationships. And now relationships matter, and relationships did work at least a little bit for Nico in the fact that they got Kyrie Irving. That's where that came from. But where the Mavs are right now as an organization, they need to hit on the draft. They need to have success with pick number 9, with pick number 30, with their second-round pick, because forecast out the next 5 years, they don't have much in the way of draft capital. This year needs to be really, really good for them in the NBA draft. And his experience, Masai's experience, with evaluating talent, these two guys working together is a really fascinating prospect to see what they can do with those picks.
And that's the big thing to me is before it was reputation and relationships wrapped up in the general manager. Now, Masai's got the relationships, and he's got the weight. Schmitz can come in and flesh out where he needs to in the prospect evaluation phase, and that to me is an interesting look at this organization. Masai talked about this at the NBA draft lottery in his post evaluation, kind of breaking down how the leadership structure will work with this franchise, because a lot of people are saying he was coming in to fill Nico's role. Technically, Schmitz is. And Masai is over that. Like it's
kind of.
But that's the point. It's like this is not the same kind of regime.
There wasn't
and
a
flow.
team president above Nico, though.
Right.
So like in terms of like who's where the buck stops from a basketball decision-making standpoint, that's Masai, like it was with Nico. I know
that's
the
why
job titles are
But that's
the
why
same.
this soundbite is interesting to me, and I would like if we could toss to slot number 4.
Yeah, if we can pull up slot 4, then yeah.
We all work well together, and the way I'm going to set up the leadership team is we're all going to work hard and well together. There's no job that's too small and no job that's too big. That's the setup I've always had. And you grind through it. It's super important that everybody's on the same page. Yeah, doing our work honestly, and really, really focused with an honest direction. And that's what I believe. That's what I believe in. Yeah. So it doesn't matter that I'm not walking around like I'm a boss. We all work really hard and try to win. There's nothing important as winning in sports. It's all about winning. And we'll win in Dallas.
But it's just the sum total of it. He's not coming in as a mafioso, you know what I mean, and running everything. This is a collaborative effort, and he understands where his strengths are, and I think he understands what Schmidt's going to bring to the table in that regard too.
I do think Schmitz brings more than just draft value, though, as well for this organization. He was the one who basically identified Denny Avdia and made Portland trade for him.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I was going to bring
It's
that
a
up.
great move, and it worked out really well. He was an all-star this year, and that was potential that I don't think a lot of people saw that he did see, and he was instrumental in not only the fact that they traded for him in the first place, but the way that they rounded out the trade capital that was used to acquire him. Like, he's been good in that space, too, so he'll have tent poles in terms of what he brings to the table beyond just his draft evaluation.
Well, yeah, and I spoke about the YouTube rabbit hole, and I'm finding clips of Mike Schmitz hyping up Denny Avdia heading into the NBA draft in, what was it, I think it was 2020.
Maybe, yeah.
It was the Ant Edwards draft. And I'm just thinking, he saw it then. And he not only saw it then, but then when he was in a position where he can kind of say, hey, guys, this guy is legit. And he was. I mean, Denny Avdia was good with the Wizards. It's not like he came out of nowhere.
Sure.
Good players do play for the Wizards. The Wizards themselves are not good.
He was good for the Wizards, but they saw that they could elevate his role more in Portland, which is, again, goes back to the evaluation. And that is so much what the Mavs need.
Right.
Is they need to be able to find these kind of mid-tier guys that they know have more in the tank. And actually, NBA players will be the first ones to tell you that a lot of guys in the league that maybe are not superstars could be. But because their role on the team is to be this, they're not really allowed to be. They're it's almost like you're kind of kept in a cage a little bit because we need you to do this. when you probably could do this. But we have a star player who already handles that. We have this guy who does this. And it's more defined roles in the NBA, whereas like on the playground when you're a kid, it's just give the ball to the best player kind of thing. So I do wonder if they're going to be able to find those guys that have, maybe been dragged down a bit and have more that they can give a team, because they're out there. There are tons of them. I mean, I think about half the Oklahoma City Thunder roster is probably goes to another team and would be an absolute star.
But they're going to have a roster issue themselves. The Thunder are with all the draft picks.
Yeah.
Like they have a significant backup.
They might win 5 championships before then, but yeah,
sure, that is definitely a possibility. I bring that up to say, like, again, we'll dump on Nico as much as we need to, but that was part of what Nico succeeded at in 24 was bringing in those role players at the right time with PJ and Daniel Gafford. Mm-hmm. Whether or not he had the right eye for other moves is totally different story. But those kind of situations, when you have a guy like Flagg already in place, those are the things you can do to really elevate a franchise quickly.
It's not fair or reasonable for anybody to expect anybody in basketball operations to be perfect. Masai Ujiri, Mike Schmitz, Thunder GM Sam Presti, take your pick. Nobody is perfect in this space. Nobody's going to be perfect in this space. But because of the situation that the Mavs are in with how limited their draft capital is, they can't afford to miss with the 9th pick in June. They can't afford to miss with the 30th pick in June. That's not Ujiri's fault. That's not Schmidt's fault. That's the doing of Nico Harrison as well as those before him. But that is their burden to bear, and they're going to have to live in that reality and deal with that reality going forward. They're going to have to hit this summer, or they're going to have to get creative with other ways to create draft capital for themselves.
I'm not going to give Nico Harrison too much credit on bringing in those guys the year they made the run to the finals. They certainly helped, but he wanted Kyle Kuzma, and he was going to dish out heavy draft capital for Kyle Kuzma.
Hey, listen, he didn't end up making it, so
if that happens, I'm not sure they make the finals.
I don't doubt that part of it.
They kind of succeeded despite themselves in that trade with Washington and getting Gafford, and I don't know if he was the consolation prize there or whatever because the Kuzma deal didn't pan out, but it worked to their benefit. But it kind of goes back to we give Nico credit for certain things, but like this is what he actually wanted.
Right.
So
my point in that was less, hey, Nico did a good thing, but more so like role players exist elsewhere, and that's not necessarily getting the guys. Like people knew who Kuzma was, they probably didn't know who Daniel Gafford was.
Yeah.
And Gafford was a difference maker on this team. That was all I was saying. It's like finding those guys are the ones that are going to help this team turn around quickly.